Have you ever noticed how some of the most important things in life often feel like the hardest to begin? You know exercising will make you healthier, yet getting out of bed feels impossible. You know studying will improve your future, yet your hand reaches for your phone instead of your books. You know you should have that difficult conversation, start that business, learn that skill, or chase that dream, but somehow your brain keeps whispering. Maybe tomorrow becomes next week. Next week becomes next month. Before you realize it, years have passed, not because you lacked talent, intelligence, or opportunity, but because something inside your own mind kept making simple actions feel incredibly difficult. Why does this happen? Why does your brain resist the very things that could improve your life? And perhaps the most important question of all, is your biggest obstacle really the world around you? Or is it the brain inside your head? The answer begins nearly 50,000 years ago. Imagine one of your ancestors standing at the edge of an unfamiliar valley. On one side is the place they've always known, safe, familiar, predictable. On the other side is unexplored land. There may be food there. There may be shelter. But there may also be predators, poisonous plants, or hostile tribes. Every step into the unknown carries risk. The human who rushed into uncertainty without caution often didn't survive long enough to pass on their genes. The one who hesitated, observed, and stayed close to familiar ground usually had a better chance. Over thousands of generations, evolution rewarded brains that preferred certainty over uncertainty, familiarity over change, and safety over possibility. That ancient survival program still runs inside your brain today. The problem is that the modern world demands the exact opposite. Growth requires uncertainty. Success requires discomfort. Learning requires making mistakes. Falling in love requires vulnerability. Building a business requires risk. Speaking in public requires facing fear. Nearly everything that moves your life forward begins with stepping into the unknown. Yet your brain still reacts to uncertainty as though you're walking into a dangerous forest instead of attending a job interview or starting a new project. It doesn't ask, will this help you grow? It asks a much older question, could this get you hurt? Deep inside your brain, a constant negotiation takes place between two powerful systems. One is the ancient emotional brain built for survival. The other is the newer logical brain built for planning, reasoning, and long-term goals. When you decide to do something difficult, your logical mind sees the future reward. It imagines the healthier body, the successful career, the completed project, or the better life waiting ahead. But your emotional brain doesn't care about rewards that might come months from now. It cares about comfort right now. It notices uncertainty, effort, and possible failure, then immediately sends signals that make the task feel heavier than it really is. Suddenly, checking your phone feels easier than writing the first page. Watching one more video feels easier than going to the gym. Sleeping for another hour feels easier than chasing your dream. Nothing about the task has changed. Only your brain's perception of it has. This happens because your brain is obsessed with conserving energy. Although it makes up only a small percentage of your body's weight, it consumes an enormous amount of energy every single day. Throughout evolution, wasting energy could mean starving before finding your next meal. As a result, your brain developed an extraordinary ability to avoid unnecessary effort. It constantly asks itself a simple question: is there an easier way? Thousands of years ago, this instinct helped humans survive. Today, it quietly fuels procrastination. Every difficult task feels like an expensive investment of energy, while every distraction offers immediate relief. Your brain isn't lazy. It's efficient. The problem is that efficiency doesn't always lead to fulfillment. Then there's the fear of failure. Imagine a child learning to walk. They fall hundreds of times, yet they never conclude, "Walking isn't for me." They simply stand up and try again. Somewhere along the journey to adulthood, that fearless curiosity changes. Failure stops feeling like feedback and starts feeling like judgment. Every mistake becomes evidence that you're not smart enough, talented enough, or capable enough. But here's the truth. Your brain exaggerates the emotional cost of failure because throughout history, failure sometimes carried serious consequences. Being rejected by your tribe could mean losing protection. Losing status could reduce your chances of survival. Your modern brain still carries echoes of those ancient fears, even though making a mistake during a presentation or failing a business idea is nothing like being abandoned in the wilderness. Perhaps that's why so many people stay inside their comfort zone. Not because it's where happiness lives, but because it's where uncertainty is lowest. The comfort zone feels safe, precisely because your brain has already mapped it. It knows what to expect. It knows the outcome. But there's a hidden cost to living there. Comfort slowly becomes a cage. Every day you avoid something difficult, your brain quietly learns another lesson. That thing must really be dangerous. The fear grows stronger. The comfort zone grows smaller. And without realizing it, you begin building invisible walls around your own potential. This is the great irony of the human brain. The system designed to protect you from danger can sometimes protect you from opportunity. It can keep you safe from rejection, but also safe from love. Safe from failure, but also safe from success. Safe from embarrassment, but also safe from growth. Your brain isn't trying to ruin your life. It's trying to keep you alive using survival rules written for a world that no longer exists. And that leads to an extraordinary realization. If your brain naturally makes difficult things feel even harder, what happens when you finally stop believing every signal it sends? What if discomfort isn't always a warning? What if, instead, it's evidence that you're stepping beyond the limits of the person you used to be? The answer could completely change the way you see struggle and the way you see yourself. The greatest obstacle in your life may not be a lack of intelligence, talent, money, or opportunity. It may simply be a brain that is doing exactly what it evolved to do. Imagine standing at the bottom of a mountain. The climb looks exhausting. Every step upward seems difficult, while turning around and walking home feels effortless. Your brain immediately starts negotiating. You can start tomorrow. You're not ready yet. What if you fail? What if people laugh at you? These thoughts don't appear because they're true. They appear because your brain is trying to reduce uncertainty and conserve energy. It has one primary mission: to keep you safe, not to help you become extraordinary. That's why comfort feels so attractive. Comfort requires almost no mental effort. Your routines, habits, and familiar environments are processed automatically, allowing your brain to save energy. But the moment you try something new, learning a language, starting a business, speaking in public, approaching someone you admire, or changing your lifestyle, your brain suddenly has to work much harder. New neural pathways must be built. Old habits must be challenged. Your prediction system loses certainty. From the brain's perspective, this feels expensive. And because it wants to protect its energy, it creates resistance. That resistance doesn't feel like biology. It feels like a lack of motivation. But motivation is often just your brain's emotional interpretation of how difficult something appears. The harder your brain predicts a task will be, the less motivated you feel to begin. This is why the first step is almost always the hardest. Once you start, something remarkable happens. The brain begins collecting evidence that the task is survivable. The fear decreases. The resistance weakens. The action becomes easier. Yet most people never reach that point because they mistake the discomfort of beginning for a sign that they shouldn't continue. This is where procrastination is born. People often believe procrastination is caused by laziness, but neuroscience tells a different story. Procrastination is usually an emotional regulation problem, not a time management problem. When a task creates fear, uncertainty, boredom, or self-doubt, your brain immediately searches for a quicker source of relief. Social media, YouTube, games, food, scrolling your phone. These activities deliver small bursts of dopamine with almost no effort. Compared to writing a difficult report or preparing for an important exam, checking your phone feels incredibly rewarding. Your brain isn't choosing what's important. It's choosing what feels better in the moment. Thousands of years ago, immediate rewards increased the chances of survival. Food today was more valuable than uncertain food tomorrow. That ancient instinct still shapes your decisions. This is why long-term goals often lose to short-term comfort. Your future self dreams of success, but your present brain wants immediate relief. Another invisible force making life feel difficult is uncertainty. The human brain dislikes uncertainty so much that it often prefers a painful certainty over an unknown possibility. Think about people who remain in unhealthy relationships, unfulfilling careers, or destructive routines simply because they're familiar. The known pain feels safer than the unknown future. Your brain confuses familiarity with safety, even when familiarity is slowly making your life worse. This explains why change feels frightening even when it's necessary. Your logical mind sees opportunity, but your survival brain sees unpredictability. Then there is perfectionism, the silent partner of overthinking. Many people delay starting because they want everything to be perfect. But perfectionism is often fear wearing a smarter disguise. If you never begin, you never risk failure. If you never publish your work, no one can criticize it. If you never chase your dream, you never have to discover whether you're capable of achieving it. The brain creates impossible standards because impossible standards provide the perfect excuse to stay inside the comfort zone. Ironically, the people who achieve the most are rarely the ones who wait until they're ready. They're the ones who learn while moving. They understand something your brain doesn't naturally believe. Action creates confidence, not the other way around. Confidence isn't built by thinking about success. It's built by surviving uncertainty over and over again until your brain realizes the unknown isn't as dangerous as it once believed. Every time you do something difficult, your brain quietly updates its internal map. The next time, the task feels slightly easier, then easier again. This is the extraordinary power of neuroplasticity. Your brain is constantly changing based on what you repeatedly do. Every challenge you face strengthens the neural pathways associated with courage. Every challenge you avoid strengthens the pathways associated with fear. In other words, every decision you make is literally reshaping your brain. That's why your future isn't determined by talent nearly as much as it's determined by repetition. The person who consistently chooses discomfort slowly builds a brain that no longer fears it. The person who consistently chooses comfort slowly builds a brain that becomes increasingly afraid of change. The most remarkable part is that neither person notices this transformation happening. It occurs one small decision at a time, and that leads to one extraordinary question. If your brain can learn to fear difficulty, can it also learn to love growth? Can the same brain that creates resistance become the very thing that drives you forward? The answer is yes, and understanding how that transformation happens may completely change the way you approach every challenge for the rest of your life. In the final chapter, you'll discover why your greatest breakthroughs begin at the exact moment your brain tells you to stop, why discomfort is often the doorway to a better life,